our guests tonight are going to talk to us about the horrible, blatant murder of Lavoy Finicum and the illegal takeover of many lands that have been stolen by the government, including the Bundy Ranch in 2014. We have with us Laz Esanaro, who is an advocate for the wrongfully convicted. He is a family rights advocate against CPS and stands strongly against the corrupt, big de facto government. He also worked on the Ron Paul 2012 presidential campaign. Shauna Cox, who was a personal friend to the Bundy family and Lavoy Finicum, is a church-going patriot, the mother of 12 children, and a Tea Party member. She's written a book about Cliven Bundy's life entitled The Last Rancher Standing, and she is the one who released the video from within the truck when Lavoy was fatally shot by federal agents. Please help us welcome to our show Laz Esanaro and Shauna Cox.
Welcome.
Hey guys, thank you so much for being here today. So tell us the real reason why these ranches and lands are actually seized.
Thanks for having us. I think this is a great opportunity. And Laz will tell you also, and back me up on this, that the reason they're going after these lands has nothing to do with cattle or ranchers. It has everything to do with the resources, the minerals under the ground, and political agenda, which is very, very revealing in itself as they try to lock up all of our lands. It's just that ranchers have a lot of land in the West, and it's mostly in the Western United States. And mining and ranching has been being done away with so that these politicians can usurp the power and our rights and our minerals for their own gain. And we're going to show you, as we have uncovered a can of worms through these different experiences in Nevada and in Oregon. And so it's not just face value as to what you see is happening, but what's really going on behind the curtain.
Yes, yeah, that's what we want to hear more about.
So in Nevada, I'll start with Nevada first. In Nevada, I was there with the Bundy family, and I actually slept on their couch for 2 months and answered the phone, ran the media and the militia from there, so that to help them through this time that I was absolutely blown away when we had people dressed in military garb, besides BLM, Park Service. I mean, all of these federal agencies are prowling around in unmarked vehicles and marked vehicles, and tasing. They tased Ammon. They threw Margaret down to the ground. They beat up Davy the first day for doing nothing but videotaping the cattle being taken off the land. They had snipers on the hill. I mean, tons of things. They set up a First Amendment area if anybody wanted to complain. It was far away from where it was happening. These were the atrocities that were happening that brought people running from across America. And we were very grateful that we had the Santilli show, who heard and saw what was happening, called in. I specifically had a number of conversations with him. He wanted to make sure that that what was going out was truthful, and he came running. And had it not been for his live streaming of the tasing of Ammon and seeing these absolutely horrible things, then that brought everybody running. And so America came to protect their rights, protect the Bundy's rights, and to save this family. And they've tried to turn it into a horrible situation that they were taking a stand against the federal government, and that we actually attacked agents, this is absolutely absurd. It wasn't true. I was there. I was in the wash with them. Most of us were unarmed. There were very few people that actually had weapons, but they did come to help protect because nobody had any idea that these federal agents were going to be standing behind vehicles with guns pointed at us. We were looking at barrels of guns and in fear of our lives.
Wow.
But we knew that we were in the right, and we didn't understand why they were so desperate, why they didn't leave like they had been told the night before. The night before, the whole operation had been called off politically. And we were told by the sheriff that morning that they were pulling out. So I was absolutely in shock to come around the corner and see these agents down behind their cars with their doors open, with guns pointing up the wash at us. We were in shock. I couldn't believe what we were watching. And then there became more and more as they descended upon us. They were stacking. Nobody was leaving. They were stacking, and we were just waiting. We're trying to wait them out. Anyway, and the government has turned this into, it took them 2 years to find anything to charge us with.
Wow.
They had to come out with a fake, documentary company. It's called Longbow Productions. It was federal, and it was undercover. And they tried to instigate all of these men to beat on their chest that we won and that the federal government didn't. And so they egged them on. And when they did that, there was, I would say Greg Burleson was the worst, but he did say some things. And the sad part about that was after he was arrested and they used his information to indict people, that he actually was discovered by his own attorney. He was ousted out as an undercover agent in 2012. Which was just just clear up to 2013, just prior to this. And he is an alcoholic. They knew that he was an alcoholic. They offered him these real hard drinks. We don't know how many he had before he actually gave this testimony. And when they used that to indict the rest of us. Now, the jury has found Greg Burleson guilty of most of the charges except conspiracy, because he didn't know the Bundys, never been there before. There was no charge of conspiracy that they're trying to charge us all with, some kind of that we're joining in a conspiracy, which is so far-fetched. And they did find him guilty, the jury did, and they have sentenced him to 68 years in prison and a $1.5 million fine. Now, I'm sorry to say this, but he didn't deserve that, even though he said a lot of crazy things, but he didn't do any of it. He just said stuff. And so you're going to put him in prison for the rest of his life? I mean, he's already gone blind. He's got bad health, totally blind since he was in prison for the first couple of months, and now he can't see. His health is deteriorating. He's figuratively young, and he will never see the light of day again. It's insane. Wow. And they're trying to use this to lock up all these other people. You guys be careful. They're using Facebook images that they found Todd Engel guilty of, and the only thing they could charge him with was intimidating these officers and interstate commerce, because he used Facebook, because he live streamed when he used the F word as the agents were leaving. And so now he's facing 20 years.
Oh my God.
For doing that, which is absolutely insane.
For using the F word?
Yep, on Facebook, on live stream.
So Shauna, just to go to the beginning of this, what started all of this? What did they tell people was the reason that they were coming there to make you guys leave?
the beginning started clear back in 1995, I should say, 93, 95, because what happened is Clive and Bundy and a bunch of the ranchers, there were 52 ranchers in Clark County at that time, and Cliven said that the BLM, they have a contract. And when you have a contract and someone changes their side of the contract and you don't agree, why would you sign the contract with them? You don't have to. It's a two-party contract. He said, no way, I'm not signing that contract when you're putting us out of business. And 51 other ranchers, actually there was 50, but because one of the other ranchers has passed away that was Cliven's friend. But 50 other ranchers went ahead and signed it, and every one of them are out of business. And it's because the BLM totally managed them out of business by only allowing a certain number of cattle. So they scaled them all the way back to like 150 head, where they couldn't make any profit, they couldn't survive, and they used such crazy things like it was because of the tortoise, the desert tortoise, and all that was a lie. They proved it later, but it didn't matter because they had already taken them out of business. So they make willing sellers out of these ranchers so they can take their land. Mm-hmm. They can buy it for pennies on the dollar, and most of them just gave up because they couldn't make a living, and so why would their kids take over it? So they got forced out.
So why did the government want the land?
The land is really important because if you'll notice on any map, you can look up on the resources that all the minerals, the major part of minerals in the United States are in the western 11 states. And that's why they want to usurp all this land. And there's uranium and gold and all kinds of minerals that are under this land, and they want to take it. And you'll see how they've changed the laws so the federal government can have it. Now they don't want you on the surface rights. They don't want you any place because they're actually, Harry Reid sold that part of the land in the Gold Butte area, his son Rory, because they knew what the resources were there, and they sold it to ENN, a China corporation, for pennies on the dollar. And then this episode of not being able to get Cliven off the land, for him to fight against them, it was devastating to Harry because he couldn't perform his part of his contract with ENN. And so that contract got dropped, and he's been fighting ever since. That's why he called us all domestic terrorists. He was really upset about this whole deal.
Wow.
Laz has a lot of information on that.
I was just going to say, Laz, how do you fit into this?
I might as well just say, but back when I saw them in the Bunkerville, Nevada, I honestly thought they were just a bunch of kooks. To be honest.
Well, thanks a lot.
I apologize. And I really didn't pay too much mindset. And then here we go in 2016. Similar situation happened, but now with the Hammonds in Oregon. Yeah. So at that time, me and several colleagues at work, we were watching Chris and Hall talking regarding what's happening with the Hammonds and then the Bunkerville. And as we sat down, we saw her original live stream, and then we went back and we watched it 2 more times, especially her articulating the Federalist Papers, its Constitution, the Bill of Rights. We sat at work for probably 2-3 days contemplating, like, what is really going on? I know one of my coworkers, 2 of my coworkers wanted to go down to Oregon, and we said, well, before we go down there, we need to know the truth. We need to go, who is right? You know, there's the government saying one thing, there's the ranchers saying one thing, and then somewhere in between the middle, there has to be the truth. Mm-hmm. And I said, before we start, jump head first, why don't we just start and looking at the evidence? And so after we got done, probably within that couple of days, Judge Darby comes in and states that there are mercenaries, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty serious now. And so again, we're at work, and same group of people. We see this, and we're hearing this, and this is insane. So it was pretty slow at work, and we were like, okay, so the guy named by the name of Ron Wyden, which I didn't even know at the time who he was and what he did for a living, said something about a virus. And we were like, well, let's see what he says. And then as we were looking up and we saw some information with Uranium-1, Calico Resource. And I'm like, well, what is uranium being what is the Clinton Foundation transferring uranium to Russia? And how does Ron Wyden fit into this? And we were like, man, this does not make sense. And was that, why don't we just target campaign contributions and donations, obviously. So we started looking through all the donations. And at the time we were doing this, politicians started coming out, like Greg Walden and Jeff Merkley. And we started targeting their campaign contributions and then their earmarks. Earmarks is pork money, just like stewardship. It's all pork money. Earmarks and stewardship money is taxpayers' money going into the corporations. And we started realizing, saying, what is going on? So I get money from A, and I give tax dollars back to B, which is the corporation. We're like, I go, this is corruption. So as we looked in, we started seeing laws, like public laws, but that were created by Ron Wyden. Well, that Ron Wyden participated with Chad Cargis, that he's a Department of Fish and Wildlife. He testified in the Steens Mountain Act back in 2000. So we're just going to emphasize on the Oregon. And as I started looking into Oregon, I started looking at everything in Steens Mountain. So when you go back to Steens Mountains, you'll understand that Steens Mountain Act was the Interior Secretary was Bruce Babbitt, the President was Bill Clinton, in which they went forward with the Steens Mountain Act. And as you start reading the Steens Mountain Act, you'll also, there's another bill that came out, which a public law bill created by Congress with the help of Ron Wyden, Jeff Merkley, and then Greg Walden and Stephen E. Grasty. Them testifying because it's in congressional records. Their names are on these records. They allocated $750 million for anybody that would be contaminated with uranium. And if you know uranium, U-235, U-238, and undepleted uranium is considered radioactive, which affects your lung, your pancreas, and your liver. So in that bill, in that congressional bill, they included the Marines, the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and Steens Mountain Agriculture. So why would you add the Steens Mountain Agriculture? The only way you can add the Steens Mountain Agriculture is because in order for you to extract the uranium from the ground, you're going to affect the land. The land is part of the agriculture. As the American people start seeing, if you go back in 2000, Bill Clinton gave uranium to China in nuclear technology and $250 million. So now we go from 2000, now he's doing it to Russia. He's giving Russia money and uranium. And then that same process, you give Iran and Iraq uranium, and then you come with under the secretary, under the secretary, which is Hillary Clinton, the creation of ISIS with John McCain, Marco Rubio, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. Creating with the help of ISIS, this is where you get Benghazi, because Benghazi will transfer uranium, money, weapons, and ammo.
Laz, slow down
Yes.
just a minute because it gets so exciting. You go really fast. I want to catch all this stuff because it is so
Okay.
important.
A lot.
It is a lot.
It is a lot. He is absolutely brilliant, and I want people to be able to connect the dots. It
Yes.
is very important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really
this is a real important part right here.
So-
Excellent.
Who the Secretary of State was Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
So what Hillary Clinton did was with Benghazi was basically sacrifice Stevens and everybody there like lambs,
Yeah.
knowing that was going to go down. So and this is all well documented by Chuck Grassley's letters with respects to uranium in Russia and China also in there, and John Podesta. So these are Chuck Grassley's letters, Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa.
And how did you find those?
Through WikiLeaks.
Okay.
They validated my work, and with Shauna and I went down to City Hall, and Shauna met me in Oregon, where we reviewed these documents, and she validated the documents coming from Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa that WikiLeaks released. With 3 letters. One was 10 pages long, 12 or 11 pages. The other one was 4 pages long. So now we have the Clinton Foundation giving uranium all to our enemies while we sacrifice our military overseas.
Yep.
So when they want to go to war, well, first of all, every American person needs to ask themselves, why are we going to war with the people that our corrupt politicians in Washington, D.C. gave uranium to? What do you think are the effects of uranium? The same effects of uranium is the same thing as it being affected with the veterans of almost similar with Agent Orange, which provides cancer. So the Air Force dropped Agent Orange not just on the Vietnamese, but also on the Army and on the Marines, in which when they came back, they're still being affected today. So when they allocated $750 million through the public law with respect to the uranium, there was a reason behind that for the illnesses that are going to be that they foresaw that was going to happen. So that money's still there. The problem is how many of the veterans understand that the money is there and how to go about getting that money for their health services. So when we put that back, the same politicians, I started reading a Senate Bill 1113 and another bill called House Resolution 4402 from Oregon, all going back to the Steens Mountain, which is Steens. Well, it was Mount here included in their Vail. The geography is Oregon's big, but the geography kind of gets confusing. But in there they had the Mount here and they had Vail, and right there is where they had all the uranium. And it says in Senate Bill 1113, the critical minerals are going to China. House Bill 4402, the House resolution bill, is going to Russia. So you see, we're giving our minerals to two foreign corporations, while these individuals, through their hedge funds, like Bent Solution LLC, in which Cliff Bentz, his brother Andy Bentz, a former sheriff, is involved. You got Calico Resource, they all invest in these hedge funds, and also which Calico Resource joined with Barrick Gold Inc. from Nevada, which George Soros has ties to Calico Resource and Barrick Gold Inc. And if you understand George Soros giving the campaign contributions to the Democratic Party, Obama, Harry Reid, and Ron Wyden, and Jeff Merkley, and Greg Willis, so everybody there. But so when you start reading these Senate bills and House resolution bills and the public law from Congress, well, you ask yourself, what the hell are they doing extracting this uranium, knowing that it's radioactive and it can affect the water, the land, and anybody that likes gaming, wildlife. It's going to affect wildlife and everything in the air, because once you extract it, there's no way impossible, including the water, you can control the particles of uranium. There's no way. And then on top of it, it becomes radioactive as soon as you extract it. So I mean, this is what the studies on the bills.
Well, let me go back to the Malheur. We didn't know any of all this was happening at the Malheur. In fact, I didn't even know what a Malheur was when we got there. I didn't have any idea. When we got there, we went to help the ranchers, the Hammonds. That was our goal, was because they were having the same problems that were being pushed on the ranchers in Utah and in Nevada. And so this is the third time I have been involved with the ranchers in this situation. And I was looking for the information at the Malheur for the evidence of what Laz is talking about. There was stuff there. Stephen Grasty was the commissioner that was very much involved with the grouse that they were trying to use as a front. To basically. But basically, let me get this in. The Endangered Species Act, in which is run by Karen Suckling and the Center of Biological Diversity, he's in bed with Harry Reid, Rory Reid, Jeff Merkley, Ron Wyden, Greg Walden, Earl Blumenauer. So he's in bed. He's in bed with all these politicians in Nevada and Oregon and the other states because. we came to find out that it was Judge Ann Aiken that had very much involvement in the malheur. She's the one that prosecuted the Hammonds. She's the one that actually indicted us from the malheur. It's her sons that are part of the Friends of the Malheur that were out there protesting against us and raising money because we were there. It was when you start digging, you're linked into many judges and politicians and governors, and Laz has put this whole thing together. We did know that they're
let me touch on this, Shauna. Bill Clinton, so we got to understand the 2000 Steens Mountain Act. So everything just doesn't happen for a reason. Bill Clinton appointed Anna Akins as a judge and Anna J. Brown as a judge. But you'll notice all these people like Ron Wyden, Jeff Merkley, Greg Walden, Earl Blumenauer, Anna Akins, Anna J. Brown, Stacy Beckerman, Sally Amanda Marshall, they all come from the Lewis and Clark Law School. And if you understand the Lewis and Clark Law School, you'll understand that they're about the environmentalist. And who does Bill Clinton have in his pocket? Karen Suckling, through the Center of Biological Diversity, with our tax dollars going after the ranchers like the Hammonds. So this is why they targeted the Hammonds, because Steens Mountain, where the Hammonds property is at, was already sold to Uranium One, which is to Russia. And this is why Bill Clinton is so adamant or so involved in the Steens Mountain, but everything that's happening right now is as we speak.
Wow.
So when they came after us, we had no idea, as we were headed to the meeting in John Day, Oregon. Now, the meeting in John Day, I wasn't supposed to be there. Neither was Victoria Sharp. We just got in at the very last minute into that vehicle. They had no idea we were in there. And it had come down from Valerie Jarrett to Governor Brown to shut this virus down. And that's why they had taken the FBI and they had that kill zone. Us not knowing that, we had no clue, because we were just going to help the ranchers there in John Day. They had asked us to come. We don't usually ever travel together. It was manipulated. Mark McConnell was part of the undercover. They got us together. Anyway, we ended up, they didn't know I was there, I'm telling you. That was only God's working. And when I was put in that truck, when they started shooting at us, when we stopped the very first time, you don't see that because I didn't have my video camera on. But when they pulled us over the first time, they never approached the vehicle. They just started shooting first off as soon as we rolled out in the window. And that's why we don't want to get out. Ryan Payne was trying to protect us. He jumps out, even though they had shot at him first. And he jumps out to protect us and yells that there's women in the vehicle. They arrest him, and then we're not going to stay there because we need to get to the sheriff. So Lavoie's telling them we have to go to the sheriff. At which point, it's when I said we were in fear, and I said our best weapon, we learned that down in Bunkerville, is get our cameras. Turn on your camera. So I turned on my video camera. I had a cell phone. My cell phone did not work. There was no service. They planned that. Later, I discovered that we were within 1 mile of that Grant County borderline. I didn't know that till a year later. But when I asked Lavoie how far we had to go, he said 54 miles. I almost had a heart attack.
Yeah, who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
Oregon State Police.
Okay, well, I'm going over to meet the sheriff in Grant County. You'll come along with us, and you can talk with us over there. You can go ahead and shoot me. You put the laser right there, put the bullet through the head. Okay, boys, this is going to get real. You want my blood on your hands? Get it done, because we got people to see and places to go. No, I don't.
You need to back off.
You need to back off.
Where in the heck is Ammon?
You shouldn't have ever stopped.
Did Ammon?
You're wasting oxygen, son.
Where they got a...
What? Oh, did they have Ryan? Did they arrest him?
I don't know what they
Shouldn't
did.
have got out.
He shouldn't have got out.
I'm not turning over. I'm going into Dade County. I'm
Well,
going into Grant County to see the sheriff.
Well, if we duck and you drive, what are they going to do? Try to knock us out?
We
How
probably
much further
get
we got to go?
To shoot your tires
We
out.
got about 50 miles.
Do we?
Okay.
Tell them to approach the vehicle.
Okay.
And Ryan's talking to him, right?
Okay.
Is he talking to him?
I can't tell.
I can't even see him except the guy behind the door that's got his gun on us.
I said, there's no way we can outrun them in 54 miles on this icy road. And so they deliberately had this thing planned. And then we find out that they didn't want us to get to what they call the UN free zone. A UN free zone was because the sheriff in Grant County was a constitutional sheriff, and the government or the politicians declared it a UN free zone. They didn't want us there. And that's why they did what they did and killed Lavoie. They had intention to kill everybody in the truck. There was no doubt in our mind. And my video proves that.
We don't have any service. We have no service here.
Start calling people. They did it because there's no service here.
I
Yeah,
know
they
it.
got it.
They know it. There's no service here at
We
all.
should never have stopped. We should
Yeah.
never have stopped.
I'm going to keep going.
Then we have to duck.
I know.
What are they going to do with Ryan?
Okay.
If we take
We
off,
need
what
to
are they
get
gonna do?
Ryan
Shoot-
back.
Shoot your tires out?
Well,
Most likely.
okay, Ryan Hammond.
Where's
Why did they pull you
We'll go
over?
get help.
There's no service here.
Just because.
Okay, you ready?
Well, where's those where's the
They got
guns?
him stopped. He can't get around him. I'm going to go. You guys ready?
Okay, get
Follow
down.
me.
Then you duck
Get
down.
down.
Give me that
Up
camera.
and-
Okay, give me this camera. Go. Got it.
Are they shooting?
Got it. Keep going.
Okay, what about Ammon and those guys?
We can't get around him. I'm going to go get help.
Okay.
Stay down. Stay down.
I need
Stay
a phone
down.
so I can call as soon as I get service.
Wait up. Yeah, keep watching the phone. See if you get any
I
service.
don't have any. I don't have my
I
phone.
can't even get Joe Rice.
Coming up fast.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, I don't know about numbers.
Well, I got numbers, but I can't call because we have no service.
Okay.
No, mobile network not available.
Do you have numbers for people here in town?
Yeah, but
Hang on.
Okay, they're shooting.
Hang on.
Okay, sit down. Okay, we're here.
Go ahead and shoot me.
Damn! Trying to.
Shoot me. Go ahead and shoot me.
Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. Damn it. Are they shooting him? Did they shoot him? You assholes. Oh my god! Hold still. Hold still. Stay down.
I can't
Is
get
he
out.
dead?
Don't get out.
I'm an EMT! I'm an EMT!
Stop it.
No!
Are you hit?
No, I'm an EMT! I'm
No, hold on. Hold on. Don't do anything. They're shooting. Don't do anything. The door's shut. Where the hell is Lavoie? Is he on the are they shooting?
I can't see.
helping!
Shut up. Stay down, Ryan.
Oh, God!
Ryan, stay
Leave me
down.
alone.
Stay down. Oh, shit.
I think they just
Keep down.
killed the boy.
Did they kill him?
I think they did, and they're shooting over here on this door.
I got hit too.
Okay, hold
you-
still.
where did
I
you
don't
get
know. It didn't.
Ryan,
Hold still, hold
It's
still.
not
Ryan, where
bleeding.
did you get
Hold
hit?
still.
I'm not bleeding.
Okay, don't shoot
Where
us.
did you get hit, Ryan?
I'm okay. It's on
Okay,
the
I'm
shoulder.
gonna take some.
It's okay.
I'm taking some Keep down. Oh, shit. Well, I don't dare get out of the car. How are we supposed to get out of the car?
Did they tell us to get out of the car?
No, I can't hear anything. I don't dare get out of the car. Oh, shit. Quit shooting the windows.
Where are they shooting them?
They're hitting the windows. I don't know. They're trying to break our window.
God, keep us safe, please.
Please, please protect us,
Please,
God.
God. God.
Please protect us. Please protect us. Please protect us. We need help. We need help. We need help.
Did they kill him? They killed
No,
him.
I can see a laser coming in.
They killed. Oh my God, they killed him.
Okay. So where's the rest of everyone?
Are you okay?
Oh, yeah,
I can see lasers going by.
Where did you get hit?
I'm okay.
He's got lasers.
got a laser.
Keep your head down. I can see the laser. If you see a laser, keep it away. There's laser on your knee. Stop! I don't dare get out because they'll shoot me.
I know.
Okay.
I don't like hunkering down here either.
Me either, but I don't know what to do because
I don't know.
they keep shooting lasers at us.
Get too stinking lax. Think things are just all dandy and fine. We got too damn lax.
Yeah. Damn, why do they keep shooting?
They're
Why
trying to take my head off. Is what they're trying to
I
do.
know, but all of us? Stop! Stop! Stop!
Please!
Stop! Yes. Ah! That's ridiculous. Because you're stupid. Are you going to kill all of us?
Keep us safe.
Father, please. Protect.
Those are gas rounds.
Yeah, they are. They're good up your nose, but... Do we get out? Do we get out?
No, don't get up.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Okay. Okay.
God.
Okay.
God. Please keep
Okay,
us
there.
safe.
Okay, they got lasers still on us.
We got lasers still on us. Lavoy got out. I think they've killed Lavoy. They just shot gas rounds into the car. We're hunkered down in here, trying not to be shot.
He's shooting. That's the window. He's shooting at the window. Stop it!
Shooting more gas rounds. The gas is getting pretty thick in here.
God. Please.
Anyway,
You didn't get out. I don't dare get out. Will they shoot me?
yeah, they'll shoot you.
Hang on, I'm gonna get out. If I get...
Anyway,
Can we put a white flag out?
Yeah, I would put a flag out. Let's put a flag out.
Do we have a white flag? Yep.
I'm not sure what they got. What you got?
There's a laser shooting right over here around us.
Okay. The gas dissipates.
He's trying to break this window. He's trying to break the window we're at.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything white? Does he
I
have
don't
a
know.
wiper on?
I can't get my shirt off. He's a laser trying to shoot this window.
Daisical.
He's got this window open here.
Speak to people. Anyway, they ambushed us on the way to John Day. And now they're shooting into our vehicle. And we're hunkered down. We do not have phone service at this location.
I surrender! Can we just surrender?
Okay, open the left door. Let's get out.
Okay!
That's you, Ryan. I don't know if you can get out. You get out first. Let her in first. Let her out first. You go first. You go first.
Please don't shoot me!
Hey, go.
Okay, I get out.
Okay, get out.
Okay!
No, he'll shoot Ryan first. He'll shoot you first, Ryan. Hands up. Hands up.
The boy's dead.
Shit. Okay. Okay, go. Okay, hands up. Okay, go. Let him shoot you. Hold still.
You said
Okay.
wait, I can't go yet.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, hold on, son. Hold on, sis. Hang on.
Dad.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, I still got my camera on for a minute. Okay, you ready?
It's just that I don't have it. I've not even seen the video. The police department took it. They released it into the public, and my personal opinion is that the Oregon State Police had discovered that they were set up by the FBI, and because they're the ones that did the shooting, but it was instigated by the FBI and infiltrated because FBI had no jurisdiction over the roads that the Oregon State Police did. And so they used the Oregon State Police to do that.
Let me interject this. This is why it's so crucial for the FBI to get involved was for the simple fact that if you go back to the WikiLeaks letters, and I'm going to break this down into two subjects here. One is James Comey's brother tied to the Clinton Foundation, but two, Robert Mueller going to Russia to give them samples of highly enriched uranium. This is why the FBI had to get involved. This is why there's several letters, communications between James Comey, Loretta Lynch, Barack Hussein Obama, to Kate Brown and Ron Wyden, including Stephen E. Grassi, in which was well documented. The hard copies Shauna Cox has, it's all in PDF files and stored in different locations. But there's a communication going on for 5 days, and 2 or 3 letters that we have between Barack Hussein Obama, Loretta Lynch, and James Comey going to Kate Brown. And then phone logs going from Ron Wyden to Stephen E. Grassi to David Ward, the sheriff, and Kate Brown, and Greg Walden, the representative. So I knew for a fact that they're already being set up for assassination, just on the letterhead, the way the first 3 sentences basically spelled out. I gave also the copies to Jeanette Finnegan for the wrongful termination, which is why what is specifically why the FBI had to get involved. James Comey, remember, because the Clinton Foundation, Russia, Barack Hussein Obama giving the uranium one from Canada going to Russia, and then God knows where. Well, we already know where it went. The uranium through Benghazi, and then that same uranium was used by ISIS to overthrow Assad. Remember, if everybody recalls, that they used a dirty bomb that was uranium. If you go back to the WikiLeaks, what is Robert Mueller, the one that's right now appointed to conduct an investigation on the Clinton Foundation, but turned around and now is investigating Donald Trump financial records? What is he doing, flying to Russia to give samples of highly enriched uranium to Russia?
Wow.
Have you talked to the mainstream media about this, and what has anybody contacted you? And this is like mind-blowing information. Sounds dangerous to me. Have you felt some of the heat?
Well, one thing is I never disclose my location. That's number one. The only time I do is when I go and I get a hold of Shauna Cox and I say, Shauna Cox, let's meet here. For the most part, it's one of the reasons why I distance myself from the Patriot movement, because I believe that some people within the Patriot movement were already trying to set me up. So I had even people that you think they're your friends. Obviously, the FBI gets any type of criminal with a criminal record, and they plant them there, and they have infiltrated both sides of the movement. So what I mean, what do you call it? Infiltrating both sides of the movement. I mean, literally infiltrated both sides of this movement. So as long as you continue infighting, you're going to do 2 things: prevent the good people that participate in this movement to expose the truth, or to and scare them off. Basically, it's what's going on, and silence them. Now, so I said there's 2 parts. So that first part is a communication with Robert Mueller giving highly enriched uranium to Russia, and then the other part was the letterheads that were going between Kate Brown, Barack Hussein Obama, Loretta Lynch, and James Comey. This is well known by Congress. Congress, matter of fact, have brought this up. But what I ask everybody is, why hasn't Trey Gowdy or Chuck Grassley, even in his letters, have gotten the sergeant of arms and arrested Hillary Clinton, Loretta Lynch, James Comey, Robert Mueller, who else? Ron Wyden, Greg Walden, Jeff Merkley, Harry Reid, Rory Reid. Neil Crones, which is a principal deputy of the BLM. And we're going to go how this all happened, because it has to go to the top. And now that we're kind of done with the Malheur Wildlife Refuge on that content, now we're going to go to the Bunkerville, because when I did this research, it was one independent from the other, but both of them all tied the same sources. So it's the same people in the top level. The lower and mid people kind of change, but for sure, for a fact, if you follow the money, you follow the truth. So when I told you earlier that George Soros is involved, I mean literally involved, because of his campaign contributions, but his financial records with regards to Barrick Gold Inc., which is Nevada, merging with Calico Resource from Oregon, the Malheur Wildlife Refuge. Those two corporations merge, and this is where George Soros is profiting from. All the gold, the silver, the copper, the uranium. So when I started looking into this, I was like, well, what in the hell is going on? And the merger just happened about a month right after the assassination of Robert Lavoie Finnecke. So if you look at the dates of when Calico Resource and Barrick Gold Inc. merged, you'll understand the reason of the assassination. Because remember, George Soros gave Obama campaign contributions, just like he gave to the Clintons and the DNC, the Democratic National Party or Committee or Convention. So his money's there. When we started looking at that, we also realized that Chinese giant ENN with Roy Reid was huge. So when we put back in 2005, we found documents just about a week ago that substantiated other documents that in 2005, Gloria Navarro was working for Harry Reid and Rory Reid. Rory Reid was a commissioner from 2003 to 2011. Harry Reid was still an active senator. Prior to Gloria Navarro coming on board in 2004 and 2005 under his administration with Rory Reid as a commissioner of Clark County. Now, when we come into this, now you all understand Brian Rutledge, her husband, which Brian Rutledge is married to Gloria Navarro. Gloria Navarro is also in bed with Harry Reid's son-in-law, Stephen Beringer. Stephen Beringer represents Barrick Gold Inc., which he's also a lobbyist for Barrick Gold Inc. The principal deputy of the BLM, Neil Crones, his father, Larry Crones, works for is a geologist for the Barrick Gold Inc. So now we have ties to the Barrick Gold Inc. is Harry Reid, obviously Roy Reid, Gloria Navarro, Steve Beringer, Neil Crones, and his dad Larry Crones. The top 5 tiers that control the BLM. Everybody under the BLM, besides the Interior Secretary of State, everybody else is below Neil Crones. And who appointed Neil Crones? Harry Reid.
That's true. And he did that 2 days prior to the standoff at the Bundy Ranch.
Wow.
All right. So question, does Trump know all of this?
No. We're trying to get to Trump. We know that there's people around him. We've had a lot of people talking to Zinke and Sessions, and we're trying to get in there, but we've been blocked. I mean, really, Stonewall is the best word. Put it this way: the Trump administration has been extremely infiltrated. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out.
No.
We know that you can't go to Robert Mueller because he's basically covering up his actions with respect to giving samples of enriched uranium to Russia, taking samples to Russia. There's a manifest there. Also, James Comey and his brother tied to the Clinton Foundation. So you can't go to the FBI. And then who do you go to the FBI when the two criminals on the top of the FBI or the food chain are in bed with the Clinton Foundation? Then you go to Chuck Grassley and you see Chuck Grassley's letter. Well, Chuck Grassley, what are you doing? How come the Sergeant of Arms hasn't arrested any of these criminals? And then when you go to Trey Growdy, well, you know all this with Benghazi and the uranium. and with Chuck Grassie's letters and the Clinton Foundation, obviously behind the uranium with Russia and Uranium One, why aren't they not arrested? Why are the political prisoners arrested? Why are they being prosecuted? I mean, so
tell the truth. That's why, because all of them don't even know. It's just that they're trying to demonize Americans so that they, and I want you to know that the people they're putting in prison are not just the ranchers, but militia members and a lot of ex-military. Mm-hmm. The ex-military who took an oath to protect this country believe that they're here to help the people, and they are being absolutely demonized and crucified. Everybody should understand that we've created our own FEMA camps over this, that they are putting them all in prison and using the NDAA to hold them even without correct charges. They just make them up. So our federal government has created a de facto government and court system, which is an admiralty court system, which is crucifying us. And the people have got to understand this, or we're going to be straight into martial law in no time at all. We're still under martial rule.
Yeah.
But I earlier today I sent you a Facebook message, and I told you those that write the words rule the world, or those that write the laws rule the world. Well, when you look at it, how many attorneys just on the Nevada side, how many attorneys are involved with regards to Chinese giant ENN and Barrick Gold Inc. and Nevada mining? And I'm going to name them. They're all attorneys. Barack Hussein Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Harry Reid, Rory Reid, Loretta Lynch. I don't know if I said James Comey. Who else is an attorney on all this? But those are the top tiers. They're all attorneys. So when was the last time you saw a judge prosecute an attorney, or an attorney turn in another attorney for the crimes of treason, aiding and abetting, obstruction of justice, or hindering prosecution? You can't, and you never see it, and you will never see it. That's why Trey Grotti's an attorney. He won't do that. He ain't going to turn his own bar members on, because they all pay a fee, or a union fee, to the bar. So their first oath is to the bar, then the country. Despite what's happening right now, knowing the facts that we just laid out, all these bar members are to the bar. Their loyalty is to the bar and the bar members. This is why you haven't seen a bar member in jail right now.
Do you know what bar means? Is the British
accredited registry.
Registry.
Well,
that's the American Bar Association.
Here's the issue then. How many senators are attorneys, and how many in Congress are attorneys?
Congressmen, absolutely.
And so they're not going to give each other up.
Sure.
No, because it's like I always tell my friends, you don't shit where you eat. You know, you never will. So let's go to Nevada and Oregon, because I want to get this straight to the American people.
Okay.
Look at how many people in the Bunkerville that are part of the American Bar Association, attorneys and judges, that were going after the Hammonds. You got Ron Wyden, you got Jeff Merkley, you have Greg Walden, you have Earl Blumenauer, you have Anna Akins, you have Anna J. Brown, you have Stacey Beckerman. Who else is in this? Sally Amanda Marshall. All attorneys, all from the Lewis and Clark Law School. And if you go back, there's actually a case, which is this case was pivotal, which I was trying to get Shauna Cox to introduce, but all our documents were being thrown away. We're not thrown, but they were squashed by Anna J. Brown. There was a document in which regards to Anna J. Brown being the presiding judge, with Sally Amanda Marshall and Stacey Beckerman stealing land from a rancher, and they put him in jail. They almost killed him. The BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, his name is Robert Curtis. They almost killed this man, but they stole all his minerals, and all his minerals are going to Canada. Well, who was behind that? Uranium One. And this can be brought up. And you'll see on the log, there's a case number, and you'll see who was a presiding judge. and you'll see who were the attorneys, the public defenders, the DA, and Earl, and what's that lady, the DA, Earl. She donated to Kate Brown, and Kate Brown donated to her, and she's the DA in Oregon. So, and she's also an attorney from Lewis and Clark Law School. So all these criminals from the Lewis and Clark are all invested in, it's called the Oregon Legislative Investment Fund, which is where they create hedge funds. And there's 50 corporations in those hedge funds. And out of those 50 corporations, they're all tied to the minerals in Oregon, everywhere else. So all those minerals that go to Wall Street that are being stolen from the American people, because it belongs to the American people. It doesn't belong, because under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, the federal government cannot own any land. That land belongs to the people. They're stealing our minerals through using our tax dollars so they can go ahead and profit their hedge funds through the Oregon Legislative Investment Council. That's just Oregon. In Nevada, the same thing, the same MO in Nevada.
So what are some other examples where the government has stolen land for their own profits? There's got to be tons of them, right?
The Hague case. The Hague case.
Wayne Hague.
Yeah.
He's still in the battle. The Dan sisters over there in Nevada. We have lots of them down in New Mexico. They're all over. We can't even begin to list them all. You have people like Joe Robertson, for building just a pond on his area. It's
right.
all about taking the land and getting people off of it.
Oh, that makes so much sense, the pond thing, because I couldn't understand what the hell was going on with that.
It's all part of the swamp that Trump's been talking about, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
The Endangered Species Act with Karen Suckney and the Center for Biological Diversity is just a front. If they cannot financially break you in the courts, well, they'll use the endangered species to bring the BLM with their guns. So you'll have guns being pointed at you. This is literally, you saw what happened with the Hammonds, and you saw what happened with the Bundys, and they tried to do it with the Hagues. This is crazy. And the only reason why I'm doing this is because it's what's right, what's lawfully right, what's morally right, what our military sacrificed their blood and sweat for, to believe in the Constitution. If we're sending our military to breed for freedom in our Constitution, then what the hell is going on in these de facto courtrooms? And why are we allowing it to happen? Right. We're the congressmen, we're the senators. You won't hear a pin. Matter of fact, let's go back to the Bunkerville, Nevada. Barack Hussein Obama you have two senators, Republicans, Dean Heller and Mark Amoti, all in bed with Harry Reid, Republicans. One's a senator and one's a state representative, in bed with Harry Reid, and went ahead and was participating in the Gold Mute National Monument, where Bunkerville's at, where the Bundy's at. So in order to get the Bundy's at, well, what did Barack Hussein Obama did in his last days of office? They made the Gold Mute National Monument.
And they did that because Harry Reid couldn't just go in and take it over. He tried again to get them to go back after they had arrested all the Bundys, and they were going to go back and take over the cattle and take the ranch. But during this trial, they also have a forfeiture clause. If anybody is found guilty in any of this trial of the 26 people that are arrested there, then they can actually go in and take the ranch and everything that Cliven owns, which is a crime all by itself. So the first trial comes up and we have a mistrial, and that was on the 6 men that were on the bridge, supposedly, that had weapons, that had never even been there. They were never even there for hardly 24 hours. They didn't know the Bundys didn't know them. We were under the wash. We didn't even know they were there, and the jury couldn't figure out what to do. So they were going to acquit them, and then they marked them, but because the Judge Navarro kept messing around with their instructions, the jury asked the judge twice during deliberation to explain the conspiracy that they were supposed to be being charged with. They marked them all not guilty, and then they came back and marked through it because they were so confused. And people don't understand what jury nullification is. If you don't understand it, that means if they haven't proved reasonable doubt, they should always acquit, and they didn't do it. So now we did a retrial. They accepted the charges on the 2, that they found some guilt on that I told you about, Todd Engel and Greg Burleson. But now they're trying the other 4 again for the second time. They just rested today after having 0 witnesses. They had no defense. There's a court at the prosecutors have been prosecuting them for 17 days, and then suddenly we don't have any defense. They ignored all of our witnesses. They proffered them out. The prosecution said, let us proffer all the witnesses first. Now, how is that fair? So all the witnesses that were supposed to be for defense, and I'm going to tell you, Dennis Michael Lynch, David Knighton from the Alex Jones Show, Shannon Bushman, all these people who were there and took video and were participants in this were not allowed to testify. There was no evidence being able to be brought. The only way they could testify was that Eric Parker was the only defendant that tried to testify. On Thursday, he was disallowed. After 10 minutes, they tried to kick him off the bench, off the seat, because they said that he started talking about things that they had put into motions of limine that weren't allowed to be talked about. They couldn't talk about the First Amendment area. They couldn't talk about the tasing. They couldn't talk about Margaret being thrown down. They couldn't say why they came there. They couldn't tell about, he was trying to talk about, and then they called sidebar after sidebar after sidebar during this whole thing, where the judge and the attorneys all go back behind the screen, leaving the audience and the jury sitting there for 40 minutes at a whack or longer and having no idea what they're talking about. And then they came back on the second time on Thursday, and the judge gave Eric a warning. I was there, I heard it. She said, you crossed the line, you talked about 3 things that you shouldn't have. I'm going to give you a benefit of a doubt, and I'm going to, because that's the only defense they had. So she said, if you want to testify, you better stay in the perimeters. And not time after time, he would have to stop and say, well, I'm trying to stay in the perimeters. So he couldn't answer the questions that his defense attorney was trying to ask him. He was trying to get him to bring up a map that showed the area and where these snipers were sitting, and where he was walking and where he was looking, and everything he said would be objected by the prosecution and always sustained by the judge. In one day there was 50 objections that were all sustained and one that was allowed. Okay, that's how it went through the whole trial. And then, as Eric says, his attorney asked him, he said, so what direction were you looking then? He said, I was looking forward and up to the right. And immediately objection came from Stephen Myrie, the prosecutor. And this hadn't been 10 minutes from the time that the judge said there will be no more sidebars, but the objections, Myrie screams objection, and they get up and said sidebar. And so the judge okays it. They go back behind the sidebar. They're there for about 20 minutes. They come back out, and she ejects Eric Parker off the stand. The jury went into shock. The audience was in shock. And in fact, his own attorney was just livid. I mean, just shaking his head and smiling and frustrated. And then Eric Parker was just sitting there in shock, and his attorney waves him to get off the stand, and he got up, shook his hands down towards his side, and then started to cry. We had no defense. So today we had our last witness, and it was Scott Drexler finally took the stand. He was waffling, whatever you call it, trying to decide whether to take it or not. But we had to have him on the stand because there had been absolutely no defense allowed, not anything allowed for this trial. So they have now rested today, and we'll see what happens because the jury will go out to deliberate tomorrow.
So why is corrupt Gloria Navarro running such a kangaroo court?
because she's
right now
Harry Reid.
Yeah, but connected to Harry Reid. But let's bring this. Let me go into further detail. There's actually a case right now in which Harry Reid's son-in-law, Stephen Beringer, B-A-R-R-I-N-G-R, Beringer, is actually representing Barrick Gold Inc. against the United States. Robert Jones, the former Chief Justice, is going to move that case to Gloria Navarro. And who's in Gloria Navarro in bed with? Barrick Gold Inc. and Stephen E. Grassi. I mean, not Stephen. Barrick Gold Inc. Harry Reid, Rory Reid. So whatever happens with this case, the other case, the Barrick Gold Inc. versus the United States, will move forward in the jurisdiction of Gloria Navarro. This has to be known, and the American people need to understand that. There's a case right now that's active, that it's current right now, that whatever happens to this, depending on the direction of the ruling or the jurors, if they go in favor of the de facto government, you'll see that case move forward. That Barrick Gold Inc. versus the United States in the jurisdiction of Gloria Navarro. Now that people know, they might just move that from Gloria Navarro's hands and send it to another judge. But Steve Beringer, Harry Reid's son-in-law, is presiding over that, has that case. You can look it up. It's there. Matter of fact, on my video, about probably a month and a half ago, I posted it. So that piece of case, that case right there, is a focal point of everything because of her ties to Barrick Gold Inc. with Harry Reid, and obviously Neil Crones and Larry Cohn and her husband, Brian Rutledge. Now, Shauna Cox, do you want to explain to how Gloria Navarro, she should have recused herself, but did not recuse herself with regards to having her husband being a subpoena by the defense?
We had actually gathered all of the witnesses that we were going to have. We had to turn them in. They asked the attorneys to turn in all their witnesses ahead of time before the first trial, and which we did. Partway through the trial, about halfway through, they finally got our list together and turned in. Let's see, I think we turned it in on Tuesday night. By Wednesday afternoon at 10 to 5, there was a screaming Mimi came out of that courtroom as the judge discovered that her husband, Brian Rutledge, was on that list. And she had summoned all of the attorneys for show cause hearing on Friday morning at 8. Well, the problem is we had to stay. Well, I think that was Thursday night because it had to be the next morning because we stayed up through the night to pull this evidence together that showed how he was connected during Judge Navarro's time of being a judge for the county. She was working with Rory Reid. She was the attorney for the county. Her husband, Brian Rutledge, also worked with the county, and he was an attorney. When she put her resume in to Barack Obama to become the Supreme Court judge, the chief judge of the Nevada court, she in that resume it states that if any time that her and her husband have a conflict of interest over the people that they are trying, that she would recuse herself. Well, here's part of the problem. When the Bundy standoff, I don't want to call it the standoff because it was really a protest. When it was over, there was a number of us that went to the county sheriff in Clark County and filed complaints against the BLM and the Park Service and all those individuals that were pointing weapons at us. And we filed complaints, and nothing ever happened of it. Nothing ever happened with it. It was never addressed, and Brian Rutledge was over that sheriff's department. And we wonder why that happened. We wanted to subpoena him in and to find out exactly why, and we had subpoenaed the sheriffs during one of the pretrial hearings for Ryan Bundy, and they should have, and those marshals should have delivered those subpoenas. They had 2 weeks to do it, and they never did. The night before it was the time for the trial, somebody, well, the sheriff's department said that somebody took them some unsigned, unsealed subpoenas, and they were not going to show up for that case. And I was really upset about that whole thing. And then when we find out about Brian Rutledge, then we went that morning on Friday when they were supposed to bring in all the attorneys. I had given them this information to take to that meeting. When I called to find out what happened, because I figured she would have to recuse herself from this trial and they would have to have a mistrial and allow those men to go free, they told me, the attorneys told me they were there for less than 5 minutes and all she did was strike his name, which tells me that nobody gave her the evidence that we had given them. So the attorneys are still working hand in hand with the judge. They're all attorneys. They're all in bed together. And we will not have a fair or impartial or a court, and there will be absolutely no blind justice. She already knows everything about this case. She can quote it to you backwards and forwards. She is not there to just manage a court. She's there to manipulate it and to drive these people into prison for the rest of their lives.
Well, and not just that, but steal the water, the land, and the minerals.
Absolutely.
And depending on the outcome, this is why Steve Beverling is waiting, and as soon as what happens, the case will move forward. But I'm going to ask the American people this, and those lawyers out there that they consider themselves honest, good lawyers. How come these attorneys that are defending the political prisoners? How come they haven't filed a motion to recuse Gloria Navarro or take it to the Ninth Circuit and up to the Supreme Court? That's one aspect with regards to the conflict of interest between her and her husband and the ruling that she did in favor of her husband. Okay, and preventing the defendants from having due process. That's number one. Number two, how come they continue to allow corrupt Gloria Navarro act the way she's acting, belligerent? No control, no able to have self-control. And she's not a professional. She has violated every ethic canon that you can possibly think of. There's no due process in that courtroom. So why aren't the fighting motions? Number one, to have her removed, to have her impeached, to have her investigated by any of the public, I call them public pretenders. Why hasn't it? Because they're public pretenders. There's no due process. And if you have a client that you're supposed to represent them at the expense of the taxpayers, then what the hell are they doing? The only thing I can think of is that they're in bed. They already been bought by Harry Reid or Rory Reid and Gloria Navarro covering it up. Now the next question with respect to Gloria Navarro is Daniel P. Love. Daniel P. Love, all this of what happened at the Bunkerville back in 2014 is because of the false fabricated government report filed by Daniel P. Love. Daniel P. Love, his report was never allowed or admissible into the court, nor his testimony under subpoena was allowed to be brought into Gloria Navarro's de facto courtroom. Why is that? And if it didn't happen, then why did the public pretender subpoena Gloria Navarro? Go ahead and file a motion to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals with respects to Daniel P. Love fabricated, forgery, fraud and forgery on a government form. All these charges should be dropped automatically, and it won't be dropped for the simple fact that who's the DA? I can't pronounce his name. Murray. He's in bed with Harry Reid. Stephen Myron's in bed with Harry Reid and Rory Reid.
So
he could be, but we're talking about Daniel P. Love. Now he was the SAC. He was the special agent in charge of that operation down there, and he is also friends with Greg Bretzing because they worked together on the Utah problem, and then Greg Bretzing, head of the FBI, was taken to Oregon and was over the shooting of Lavoie in Oregon, and I mean, Daniel P. Love was the one that did everything here in Nevada. And so everywhere they go, if you pay attention to just follow them, death follows both of them. They have a problem going on. And that's why Daniel P. Love was awarded and actually made a special position over the head of the BLM enforcement by Obama himself after these incidents took place.
You know what I think? I think we need a diagram with all these names. I've heard so many names, and there's circles, and we just point to people because, oh my goodness, there's so much.
It's way overwhelming, isn't it?
Oh,
So Daniel P. Love, so the deputy director, Daniel P. Love is underneath Neil Krones, which is a BLM deputy director. Who appointed Neil Krones? Harry Reid. Harry Reid appointed Neil Krones. Neil Krones' father, Larry Krones, worked for Barrett Gold Inc. This is where the conspiracy comes in.
You need a map, Laz.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So if we talk about a conspiracy, what's the difference between a conspiracy being created by the de facto government, all members of the American Bar Association, versus the Patriots? What is so different between the two? Shouldn't the de facto government should be brought up for charges for conspiracy to defraud the American people of the land, water, and minerals?
Yeah.
Who can do that? If all of the judges are bought off, what do we do? How do we
have to be American? We have to go back to become American. I can never remember thinking the
nationals.
American
sovereign.
Yes. Well, we don't want to say sovereigns, but we want to say American nationals because we came from the land. We are the people of the land, and not part of their citizen, which is the slaves of the United States corporation, which they created. And we have to inform the people, and we have to let them see the atrocities that are happening here. This trial right here, they know these two trials have been prioritized as being the most important trials in America, even according to them, and they had deemed these trials to be complex, and the one in Oregon was told to me that it was $100 million trial, and it was
taxpayers'
so
money
that these attorneys got paid 5 times their normal pay to be there. Everybody was getting filthy rich over this, and so is the same thing happening in Nevada. This is a high-profile
case
hearing.
Man, I get too many words in my brain.
But hold on. Under 5 U.S. code, the judges profit depending on the amount of this. Like $100 million, they'll profit between 3 to 5 to 10% of the case at taxpayers' expense.
Yeah.
So here we pay for their salary to rule on the Constitution, which they don't. At the same time, they get bonuses, which goes to their hedge funds.
Anyway, this whole thing is...
the DA and also the DA and the public pretender also get a percentage from this under the 5 U.S. code, which is mind-boggling. Because then where's the justice? Where do you get due process? Is if every time the government wins, the judges and the lawyers win. Yeah. So if you're in a jury of your peers and they ruled in favor of the government gets, depending on the judge, between 3 to 10%, and then 2 to 3% the attorneys. So where's the justice?
Yeah.
Let me move on from here for 1 second. When this trial is over, because they've had a mistrial and now they just retried him again. We'll see what happens here. Then the next one will become the Bundys. It will be Cliven and Evan and Ryan Payne, and anyway, it will be the big trial. We cannot allow, the American people cannot allow this to lose. They need to support, they need to be there, they need to show up, because this determines whether America goes under martial law or not. This determines, because when Jeff Sessions comes to Nevada during the time that we are having this trial going on. He never even goes to the courthouse. He's next door, and he talks about immigration. And he is asked by the Las Vegas Review-Journal if he what he thinks about the Bundy case, and he says that Stephen Myrie, the prosecuting attorney, is doing a good job. And then they asked him, well, whose side are you on? He said, I'm not taking any sides. Well, he already did. I'm telling you, by the afternoon that day, we saw a big, huge increase of unconstitutional, like they turned on the green light to allow them to do anything they wanted. There was no bars hold to anything they said, anything they did, from the prosecution to the judge, and they have been merciless to these people. I'm just telling you that that America doesn't understand the crossroads we have here, that either we win and it turns the people to straighten up this government, or if we lose, then we had better be ready to move into the city and be under martial law, because that's how it's going to end.
Okay, so
matter of fact, let me go ahead.
No, I was just going to step in real quick and say I totally agree with you. I see what's going on with our country right now with our First Amendment. They're trying to snuff it on all the major Google and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. Channels like mine are being suppressed. They're being censored because of what we're saying. So what you're saying is exactly right. But here's what's important, because I don't think people knew this about the Bundy case in the first place, was what really happened. What's the truth? It needs to get out what the truth is. It's not about an endangered species or a bunch of, rednecks that don't want to get off their land. No, it's way more than that. And people like you need to get that. And if you want to use our venue to get that message out, that's fine. But it needs to go out. And I think
I wrote a book.
Okay.
People should get the book. It's called The Last Rancher Standing. They can get it on Amazon, but they really need to get that book, because it gives you the basis of what happened. It's not about cows, and it talks about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if anybody has filed any civil lawsuits in this case at all.
We have, but we don't. We're so wrapped up in this other that we're trying to defend ourselves that it's hard to do these. And I've already dropped a couple because I haven't had time to spend on them.
Yeah.
So, and that's detrimental to us. But there's just not enough hours in the day to do all these things.
Yeah.
Good, Les.
Let me add this. This case is so crucial for every American person, from us to our grandparents, to our children, and to all those that have great grandchildren. And I'm gonna tell you why. There's a reason why our founding fathers gave us the Bill of Rights and wrote the Fourth Amendment, property. If the de facto government wins, we no longer have rights to our property. Mm-hmm. That means they can come at will anytime, any day, and take and seize your property without warrant, without any due process. Mm-hmm. This is how serious we're talking about. Meaning, if you own a vehicle and you're traveling today, and you get pulled over by a cop, they can seize your vehicle automatically.
Right.
No different than if they wanted to go get your land because they like it, they can take your land and your minerals and everything else in there, around it, and on it. This is why this is so important. It's not just about the Bundys, it's about us collectively, because once they ruled on this case has eternity, because they will use this case to the day we die, and our grandchildren will die. They'll continue to preside on this case. This case will be on everybody's. If the government wins, it will always be in favor of the government for years to come. And the only way to overturn that is by the Declaration of Independence and exercising our First and Second Amendment rights. It's what going to end up coming down to. Because the day this becomes Cuba and Russia, and the government decides to start willfully taking people's property without any due process, well, there's consequences behind that.
It's a civil war, guys.
Absolutely.
No, I see what's going on. I believe that the next year ahead of us is going to be extremely important. about what the people do, what they decide to do, and what they decide they're going to take. And that's why we're helping getting the message out, the truth out. And that's why they're suppressing us.
And we thank you.
We thank you.
We thank you. Yeah, that's right.
I've not ever seen such strong patriots as you guys.
Yeah, so we'll just keep on plugging this message out, and what you guys are, wow, the knowledge that you just, my head's going to explode, actually.
Well, let me tell you something, and we both feel this. We know that it's the Lord's work. We're doing what we can. We feel very empowered. I feel very protected. I know that Laz does too. We can't stop until it's finished, and that we have a responsibility. I know that I have a responsibility to continue to do this for all of us. It's not mine, it's the Lord's, and we are grateful because we feel very protected, and we feel like we're being guided, and that's how
we feel the same
that's
way.
why
we do too. Yeah, we definitely feel guided in doing what we're doing, and I think that the timing. I mean, I think this is the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
exactly, and to the people out there wondering why Trump has not been able to either somehow in some capacity get a hold of us. I mean, the only one right now that I can see is Roger Stone's. But even with Roger Stone, his administration is so infiltrated, so bad, from congressmen to senators to state representatives. As I mentioned to you, Dean Heller, a Republican, Mark Amoti, a Republican, Mitch McConnell, a Republican, Marco Rubio, a Republican, John McCain, a Republican. He's so infiltrated. That House and the Senate is so infiltrated. We the people, he needs our help. We gotta gut that. I mean, we gotta extract this cancer, because that's what they are, cancers, including Lindsey Graham. They're all cancers in destroying our country. So one way, shape, or form, as Americans, we need to rise. Trump can't do this alone. Don't expect Trump to do this by himself. He needs our asses off that couch, away from that TV, and start marching.
Absolutely.
With respect to the Antifa and all these left and right wing radicals, we're being played because of George Soros.
Yeah.
Yes.
George Soros has his hand in the cookie bar with Barrick Gold Inc., extracting all our minerals in our land.
Yeah.
Why do you think the ACLU has not stepped in with respect to Gloria Navarro's conduct, or Anna J. Brown's conduct, or Anna Aiken's conduct? Because who donates to the ACLU? George Soros.
Yeah.
Who controls the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals? George Soros. Who controls Media Matters? George Soros.
Yeah.
So until we start getting all these corrupt politicians and these traitors within our country and start putting them behind bars for what they are, then we have no leg to stand on, but looking to ourselves in the mirror and say, it's our fault for allowing it. This is why Trump needs us.
We can't let people like Soros divide this country, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to start a race war and divide us in that way, in every way.
You know what's funny? You said that? There's the NDA Act. You know who was behind the NDA Act? George Soros with Barack Hussein Obama. If you look back, almost back in 2012, you'll see George Soros behind that NDA with Barack Hussein Obama.
Yeah.
So George Soros has, and the one who well articulated this was Glenn Beck at the time before he went rogue. Glenn Beck had a chalkboard and he demonstrated that. He showed everybody from Media Matters to George Soros to the ACLU to the NDA Act and Barack Hussein Obama. This was well orchestrated. Glenn Beck was able to articulate this, but somebody somehow shut him up.
I have my insight on that one. We'll find out later.
Well, yeah. So, lads, the next time you guys come on, lads, we need to have you on with a whiteboard.
No doubt.
Like whiteboarding this stuff.
Yeah, there
man.
you go. It helps. Chalkboard works.
And it better be a big whiteboard, like the whole wall.
I wouldn't mind doing it in that office.
So yeah, I mean, but
I'll find you a different one.
which means that we want you guys back on again. So obviously, because there's so much to talk about. So when is this the verdict for this trial or whatnot?
Well, we won't know. They'll start deliberating tomorrow, so it will be in the next couple of few days.
Okay.
Is it possible for the jury to come back and say there was no trial because only one side presented evidence and then throw it out?
Absolutely, that would be jury nullification. They have a right to do that, but the judge controls them. Here's what the judge says to them, and they have this down pat. They say, you will not look at any outside sources, and you will follow the law as I interpret it to you. That's what they tell them, and they make them take an oath to that. Wow. That's very controlling.
Yeah.
And so these poor people are innocent people who really don't know and don't understand jury nullification that says we don't have to listen to you because what the judge is telling them is that they are not allowed to read the Constitution. They're not allowed to talk about the Constitution. The Constitution cannot be in that courtroom, and that's verbatim what the judge says, because guess what? Only the judge can interpret the Constitution. We are all too dumb to read it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay?
Yep.
Because that's pretty pathetic.
It is very
so we're not even allowed to carry the Constitution in the courtroom. Now, this last trial, because we complained about that, they did allow a couple people to bring the Constitution in the courtroom in their shirt pocket. But only this time. Now, none of the other times, and in the other 3 trials were they allowed to do that. Wow. So this whole thing is a railroad job. It's terrible. Anyway, we appreciate you having us on, and let's keep going, guys, because we got a lot to do. We got a long way to go, but I see the wind beginning to blow the other direction, and we've got to keep the push.
Yeah. Well, once again, thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it, and your bravery and your tenacity.
God bless you.
God bless you
God
both
bless you
also,
too.
and keep you safe. Okay, guys.
Y'all have a good evening.
We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Okay, help. Totally blind since he was in prison for the first couple of months, and now he can't see. His health is deteriorating. He's figuratively young, and he will never see the light of day again. It's insane. Wow. And they're trying to use this to lock up all these other people. You guys be careful. They're using Facebook images that they found Todd Engel guilty of, and the only thing they could charge him with was intimidating these officers and interstate commerce, because he used Facebook, because he live streamed when he used the F word as the agents were leaving.
Oh my.
And so now he's facing 20 years.
Oh my God.
For doing that, which is absolutely insane.
For using the F word?
Yep, on Facebook, on live stream.
So Shauna, just to go to the beginning of this, what started all of this? What did they tell people was the reason that they were coming there to make you guys leave?
The beginning started clear back in 1995, I should say, 93, 95, because what happened is Clive and Bundy and a bunch of the ranchers, there were 52 ranchers in Clark County at that time, and Cliven said that the BLM, they have a contract, and when you have a contract and someone changes their side of the contract and you don't agree, why would you sign the contract with them? You don't have to. It's a two-party contract. He said, no way, I'm not signing that contract when you're putting us out of business. And 51 other ranchers, actually there was 50, but because one of the other ranchers has passed away that was Cliven's friend. But 50 other ranchers went ahead and signed it, and every one of them are out of business. And it's because the BLM totally managed them out of business by only allowing a certain number of cattle. So they scaled them all the way back to like 150 head, where they couldn't make any profit, they couldn't survive, and they used such crazy things like it was because of the tortoise. The desert tortoise And all that was a lie. They proved it later, but it didn't matter because they had already taken them out of business. So they make willing sellers out of these ranchers so they can take their land.
Mm-hmm.
They can buy it for pennies on the dollar. And most of them just, the night before, the whole operation had been called off politically. And we were told by the sheriff that morning that they were pulling out. So I was absolutely in shock to come around the corner and see these agents down behind their cars with their doors open, with guns pointing up the wash at us. We were in shock. I couldn't believe what we were watching. And then there became more and more as they descended upon us. They were stacking. Nobody was leaving. They were stacking, and we were just waiting. We're trying to wait them out. Anyway, and the government has turned this into, it took them 2 years to find anything to charge us with.
Wow.
They had to come out with a fake, what do you call it, documentary company. It's called Longbow Productions. It was federal, and it was undercover. And they tried to instigate all of these men to beat on their chest that we won and that the federal government didn't. And so they egged them on. And when they did that, there was, I would say Greg Burleson was the worst, but he did say some things. And the sad part about that was after he was arrested and they used his information to indict people, that he actually was discovered by his own attorney. He was ousted out as an undercover agent in 2012, which was just just clear up to 2013, just prior to this. And he is an alcoholic. They knew that he was an alcoholic. They offered him these real hard drinks. We don't know how many he had before he actually gave this testimony. And when they used that to indict the rest of us. Now, the jury has found Greg Burleson guilty of most of the charges except conspiracy, because he didn't know the Bundys, never been there before. There was no charge of conspiracy that they're trying to charge us all with, some kind of that we're joining in a conspiracy, which is so far-fetched. And they did find him guilty, the jury did, and they have sentenced him to 68 years in prison and a $1.5 million fine. Now, I'm sorry to say this, but he didn't deserve that, even though he said a lot of crazy things, but he didn't do any of it. He just said stuff. And so you're going to put him in prison for the rest of his life? I mean, he's already gone blind. He's got bad behind the curtain.
Yes. Yeah. That's what we want to hear more about.
So in Nevada, I'll start with Nevada first. In Nevada, I was there with the Bundy family, and I actually slept on their couch for 2 months and answered the phone, ran the media and the militia from there, so that to help them through this time that was absolutely blown away when we had people dressed in military garb, besides BLM, Park Service. I mean, all of these federal agencies are prowling around in unmarked vehicles and marked vehicles, and tasing. They tased Ammon. They threw Margaret down to the ground. They beat up Theyve the first day for doing nothing but videotaping the cattle being taken off the land. They had snipers on the hill. I mean, tons of things. They set up a First Amendment area if anybody wanted to complain. It was far away from where it was happening. These were the atrocities that were happening that brought people running from across America. And we were very grateful that we had the Santilli show, who heard and saw what was happening, called in. I specifically had a number of conversations with him. He wanted to make sure that that what was going out was truthful, and he came running. And had it not been for his live streaming of the tasing of Ammon and seeing these absolutely horrible things, then that brought everybody running. And so America came to protect their rights, protect the Bundy's rights, and to save this family. And they've tried to turn it into a horrible situation that they were taking a stand against the federal government, and that we actually attacked, agents. This is absolutely absurd. It wasn't true. I was there. I was in the wash with them. Most of us were unarmed. There were very few people that actually had weapons, but they did come to help protect because nobody had any idea that these federal agents were going to be standing behind vehicles with guns pointed at us. We were looking at barrels of guns and in fear of our lives. Wow. But we knew that we were in the right, and we didn't understand why they were so desperate, why they didn't leave like they had been told the night before. Just gave up because they couldn't make a living, and so why would their kids take over it? So they got forced out.
So why did the government want the land?
The land is really important because if you'll notice on any map, you can look up on the resources that all the minerals, the major part of minerals in the United States are in the western 11 states. And that's why they want to usurp all this land. And there's uranium and gold and all kinds of minerals that are under this land, and they want to take it. You'll see how they've changed the laws so the federal government can have it. Now they don't want you on the surface rights. They don't want you any place because they're actually, Harry Reid sold that part of the land in the Gold Butte area, his son Rory, because they knew what the resources were there, and they sold it to ENN, a China corporation, for pennies on the dollar. And then this episode of not being able to get Cliven off the land, for him to fight against them, it was devastating to Harry because he couldn't perform his part of his contract with ENN. And so that contract got dropped, and he's been fighting ever since. That's why he called us all domestic terrorists. He was really upset about this whole deal.
Wow.
Lass has a lot of information on that.
I was just going to say, Lass, how do you fit into this?
I might as well just say, but back when I saw them in the Bunkerville, Nevada, I honestly thought they were just a bunch of kooks. To be honest.
Well, thanks a lot.
I apologize. And I really didn't pay too much mindset. And then here we go in 2016. Similar situation happened, but now with the Hammonds in Oregon. Yeah. So at that time, me and several colleagues at work, we were watching Chris and Holm talking regarding what's happening with the Hammonds and then the Bunkerville. And as we sat down, we saw her original live stream, and then we went back and we watched it 2 more times, especially her articulating the Federalist Papers, its Constitution, the Bill of Rights. We sat at work for probably 2-3 days contemplating, like, what is really going on? I know two of my coworkers wanted to go down to Oregon, and we said, well, before we go down there, we need to know the truth. We need to go who is right. There's the government saying one thing, there's the ranchers saying one thing, and then somewhere in between the middle, there has to be the truth. Mm-hmm. And I said, before we start, jump head first, why don't we?
Our guests tonight are going to talk to us about the horrible, blatant murder of Lavoy Finicum and the illegal takeover of many lands that have been stolen by the government, including the Bundy Ranch in 2014. We have with us Laz Esanaro, who is an advocate for the wrongfully convicted. He is a family rights advocate against CPS and stands strongly against the corrupt, big de facto government. He also worked on the Ron Paul 2012 presidential campaign. Shauna Cox, who was a personal friend to the Bundy family and Lavoy Finicum, is a church-going patriot, the mother of 12 children, and a Tea Party member. She's written a book about Cliven Bundy's life entitled The Last Rancher Standing, and she is the one who released the video from within the truck when Lavoy was fatally shot by federal agents. Please help us welcome to our show Laz Esenaro and Shauna Cox.
Welcome.
Hey guys, thank you so much for being here today. So tell us the real reason why these ranches and lands are actually seized.
Thanks for having us. I think this is a great opportunity. And Laz will tell you also, and back me up on this, that the reason they're going after these lands has nothing to do with cattle or ranchers. It has everything to do with the resources, the minerals under the ground, and political agenda, which is very, very revealing in itself as they try to lock up all of our lands. It's just that ranchers have a lot of land in the West, and it's mostly in the Western United States. And mining and ranching has been being done away with so that these politicians can usurp the power and our rights and our minerals for their own gain. And we're going to show you, as we have uncovered a can of worms through these different experiences in Nevada and in Oregon. And so it's not just face value as to what you see is happening, but what's really going on.